Late last night, while most of Washington was asleep, a single letter crossed the Atlantic that would shake the halls of power, ignite diplomatic firestorms, and send shockwaves through both sides of the ocean. A letter from Donald Trump to Norway, one that was supposed to stay behind closed doors, has now exploded into the public eye, and the reaction has been nothing short of chaos. Powerful lawmakers are furious. Diplomats are scrambling. And Norway? They didn't just respond, they fired back. This is not just another political disagreement. This is a clash of influence, pride, and global strategy that could redefine America's relationship with one of its key allies. Stay with me because by the end of this video you will understand exactly why Washington is in turmoil, what Trump actually wrote in that letter, and why Norway's response is being called one of the boldest moves in modern diplomacy. Welcome back to Capital Daily, where we break down the real power struggles in Washington, clearly, confidently, and without the spin. If you want hard-hitting political analysis, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this story is still unfolding. To understand why this moment is so explosive, we need to go back and look at the bigger picture. For decades, the relationship between the United States and Norway has been built on trust, military cooperation, shared democratic values, and strategic alignment. Norway is not just another European country, it is a key NATO member, a critical Arctic power, and an essential partner in countering Russian influence in the far north. American military forces have trained in Norway's harsh terrain. U.S. intelligence agencies have worked closely with Norwegian counterparts. And Norway has consistently stood with the United States in major global conflicts and diplomatic disputes. But all of that goodwill is now hanging by a thread. According to sources inside Washington, former President Donald Trump sent a private letter to Norwegian leadership several weeks ago. At first, it was treated as routine diplomatic correspondence. But as details of the letter began to leak, it became clear that this was anything but ordinary. Insiders described the letter as aggressive, demanding, and unusually confrontational. Instead of thanking Norway for its partnership, Trump reportedly challenged them on defense spending, criticized their energy policies, and questioned their commitment to NATO in ways that many found shocking. Some officials close to the situation say Trump was attempting to pressure Norway into increasing military contributions and taking a harder stance against Russia. Others believe the letter was part of a broader strategy to reshape U.S. alliances on his own terms. Either way, the reaction inside Washington was immediate and fierce. The moment word spread through Capitol Hill, Washington went into overdrive. Senior Democrats condemned the letter as reckless and damaging to U.S. foreign policy. Several prominent Republicans, even those who have traditionally supported Trump, reportedly expressed concern behind closed doors. One unnamed senior official was quoted as saying, "This isn't diplomacy. This is intimidation dressed up as policy." Lawmakers on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee called emergency meetings. National security advisors scrambled to assess potential fallout. And inside the State Department, diplomats worked overtime trying to contain the damage before it spiraled out of control. Major U.S. media outlets quickly picked up the story, framing it as yet another example of Trump's unorthodox and confrontational approach to international relations. Headlines blared across television screens and news websites, warning of a brewing diplomatic crisis. But while Washington was arguing amongst itself, something even more dramatic was about to happen. Norway did not stay silent. Instead of quietly addressing the issue through diplomatic channels, the Norwegian government chose a bold and unprecedented move. They responded publicly. In a formal statement released from Oslo, Norwegian officials pushed back hard against Trump's letter. They rejected what they described as mischaracterizations of their defense commitments, and emphasized that Norway remains one of the most active and reliable NATO members. But they didn't stop there. In what many analysts are calling a stunning diplomatic rebuke, Norway also questioned the legitimacy of Trump's influence over current U.S. foreign policy, pointing out that he is not currently in office. In essence, they were sending a clear message: Norway does not take orders from a former president. Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre reportedly told advisors that Norway would not be bullied into changing its policies based on pressure from any single American political figure, former president or not. That statement alone sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles. It was rare, direct, and unusually forceful for a close U.S. ally. And that is when the situation escalated from controversy to full-blown crisis. Commentators across Europe began debating whether this marked a turning point in how smaller nations would deal with powerful political figures from the United States. This is where the story becomes bigger than just Trump and Norway. If allies begin to see the United States as divided, unpredictable, or inconsistent, it weakens America's position on the world stage. Russia and China are watching this situation very closely. For Russia, any crack in NATO unity is a strategic opportunity. If Norway feels pressured or alienated by American leadership, Moscow could attempt to exploit that tension, especially in the Arctic region where both nations have competing interests. For China, this episode feeds into their narrative that the US is unstable and unreliable as a global leader. Beijing has already used similar diplomatic conflicts in the past to argue that American alliances are fragile and transactional rather than principled. Inside Washington, national security experts are warning that this kind of diplomatic conflict, especially when played out in public, could have long-term consequences far beyond this single letter. Some believe Trump was trying to project strength and toughness. But critics argue that true strength in foreign policy comes from partnership, respect, and strategic cooperation, not pressure and humiliation. They worry that if this approach becomes the norm, America could slowly find itself with fewer trusted allies. So what was Trump actually trying to achieve with this letter? According to sources familiar with his thinking, Trump has long believed that many European countries, including Norway, are not paying their fair share when it comes to defense spending. He has repeatedly criticized NATO allies for relying too heavily on U.S. military power while investing too little in their own defense. In his letter, Trump reportedly demanded that Norway significantly increase its military budget and take a more aggressive stance toward Russia in the Arctic region. While some of these concerns are shared by other U.S. officials, the tone and approach of Trump's letter appear to have crossed a line. Instead of negotiation, it felt like an ultimatum. Instead of diplomacy, it felt like confrontation. And that is what sparked such intense backlash. Not everyone in Washington sees this the same way. Trump's supporters argue that he is simply holding allies accountable and protecting American interests. They claim that Norway, like many NATO members, has been too comfortable relying on U.S. military power while underinvesting in its own security. Some conservative commentators have praised Trump for telling it like it is and standing up to foreign governments instead of playing what they call polite diplomatic games. But his critics see this as dangerous and reckless behavior that undermines decades of carefully built diplomatic relationships. Even within the Republican Party, there is growing tension. Traditional foreign policy hawks are uneasy, while Trump loyalists remain firmly in his corner. This division only adds to the sense of turmoil in Washington. Norway's response is particularly significant because of its geopolitical importance. Located near the Arctic, Norway plays a crucial role in monitoring Russian military activity and maintaining NATO's northern defense line. It hosts NATO troops, conducts joint military exercises, and has been a key player in Western security strategy for decades. By pushing back so strongly against Trump, Norway is sending a clear message. They will not compromise their sovereignty or be dictated to by any American politician, regardless of their influence or popularity. At the same time, they carefully reaffirmed their commitment to NATO and their partnership with the United States, just not under terms they view as coercive or disrespectful. This balance shows that Norway is not trying to break away from the U.S., but rather asserting its independence as a sovereign nation. As of now, the situation remains unresolved. Current U.S. officials are working behind the scenes to smooth things over with Norway and reassure them that Trump's letter does not reflect official U.S. policy. Diplomatic channels are buzzing with conversations aimed at de-escalation. Meanwhile, Trump himself has reportedly doubled down on his position, insisting that he was right to pressure Norway and that America must stop being taken advantage of by its allies. The question now is whether this incident will fade away as just another political controversy or become a defining moment in U.S.-European relations. If Trump returns to power in the future, this could be a preview of how he would handle diplomacy, and that has many world leaders deeply concerned. At its core, this story is about power, pride, and the future of American leadership. Washington is in turmoil not just because of one letter, but because it represents a larger struggle over what U.S. foreign policy should look like: confrontation or cooperation, pressure or partnership, dominance or diplomacy. Norway's decision to fire back shows that America's allies are no longer willing to stay silent when they feel disrespected or threatened. And as this drama continues to unfold, one thing is clear: the world is watching very closely. This is Capital Daily, bringing you the stories the establishment doesn't want you to miss. If you found this breakdown helpful, hit the like button, share this video with someone who follows politics, and most importantly, subscribe so you never miss our deep dives into the real power struggles shaping America and the world. Because here we don't just report the news, we help you understand what it really means.